Okay, so once again, welcome to the ladies' Parsha Shiur, Parshas Pinchas, Toshem Pei Daled, 5784, 2024. Now, Parshas Pinchas, as we've mentioned in the past, it's a sort of an unusual situation because we have the main body of the story of Pinchas is actually in the previous Parsha, in Parshas Balak. And I mean, although Balak, you would think really has got very little to do with Pinchas, of course, it was Balak's advice that we spoke about last week, that he advised, it was Bilam's advice to Balak, that the best way to cause the downfall of the Jewish people was to get them involved in lewd immorality, which is, and that's why they got the daughters of Moab and the daughters of Midian to basically seduce the young Jewish Hebrews and got them to worship idols. And that was in last week's Parsha, and it reached a climax when Zimri, who is the head of the tribe of Shimon, consorted with Cosby, who was one of the princesses of Moab, and as a result of that terrible Chilul Hashem, as we call it, was a real desecration of Hashem's name. Pinchas actually did a summary execution with a spear. He literally ran them through when they were actually in the act, as it says. Yes, it was quite dramatic. They certainly got the point. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist that.
How did Zimri go off in the first place?
How did he go off?
In the first place. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time
it mentions his name. Okay. Actually, no, it mentions his, yes, it says on if you look on page 1042, verse 14, Shem Ish Yisrael HaMoker Asher Hukas Medinis Zimri ben Soluinus Nasi Beis Obla Shimoni. He was the prince of Big Shot tribe, the prince of the tribe,
yeah.
And the woman was Cosby Bust Sur. Yeah, it was another Cosby show, and it was yeah, unfortunately, but because what was happening was Moshe had it was a whole thing. We didn't really have time to discuss it last week, but Moshe had told the judges, the Jewish judges, that they needed to, a lot of these Jews, unfortunately, again, the Jews, they got mixed up with being seduced by these ladies, Midianite ladies and Moabite ladies, and worshipping idols. And that was a capital punishment. So they needed to be executed. And that's what they were doing. The door open, yeah. So Moshe was telling the judges that they need to arrest the people and they need to carry out the executions. Okay, so the tribe of Shimon, they came along to their prince and said, we're getting executed here. You've got to do something. You've got to stop it. This guy's a Meshuggah. He's trying to kill us all, right? So Zimri, he takes this woman called Cosby. She was a Midianite woman, right? And he was very, very chutzpah. He came to Moshe and he says, are you allowed to marry such a woman? Are you allowed to have a relationship with such a woman? And of course, Moshe said no. So Zimri, very clever, chutzpah, cheeky so-and-so, said, well, then who permitted Zipporah to you? Because Zipporah was also a Midianite woman. Yes. Of course, they had been married even before the giving of the Torah, right? And she converted with everybody else. So that itself was a bit strange. Why was that not even mentioned, right? Okay, so, but that was exactly what happened. So this guy Zimri was obviously a real big, as we say in Yiddish, a real chutzpahniak, a real terrible, cheeky so-and-so.
Was the head of,
yes, that's right. And in fact, he was a tribe of Shimon.
No.
He was.
Hold on 1 second, ladies.
He was
We're in the middle.
He was the tribe. He was the head of the tribe of Shimon, right? He was the head of the tribe of Shimon. Absolutely. And that was the whole thing. That how would how could Pinchas execute summarily the head of a tribe? And that was a very brave thing to do. Sorry, so that light show. I'm going to change the light bulb.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So he was as a result of that, Pinchas executed him, and then the story continues in our parsha. That's what happened last week. The deed was done, right? Then we suddenly go on and we say, oh, Pinchas, Hashem said that because the people were really, they wanted to kill him, Pinchas, because the fact that he'd done what he did this summary execution. It was a spontaneous outrage that he was so angry that this chap was having a relation with a Midianite princess that he literally summarily executed her. It was a citizen. You've heard of a citizen's arrest? This was a citizen's execution. Yeah. Exactly. It was, he was the judge and the executioner as well. So, but in such a case, you are allowed to do that if the person is involved in an act of intimacy with a non-Jewish person, and it's in flagrant violation of the Torah. Then at that point, a person who is outraged can issue a summary execution and actually do it himself. If he asks, of course, can I do that? Then he's not allowed to do it. Okay, but see, he was allowed to do it. And then Hashem says, okay, I'm now going to give him a special gift. What is the gift? The gift that he is now going to be considered a Cohen. Yep. Now, we're going to discuss this in a minute because he was a grandson of Aaron, a Cohen. So how come he wasn't a Cohen till then? We'll get back to that in a minute. But let me just ask a general question, which I just started to involve. Why do we have it over two Sedras, this story? I mean, the story of Pinchas, what he did with Zimri, he did to Zimri, right? I mean, you could have taken the whole of the last part, the last part of Balak, which is only 9 verses, cut it off there, put it on our Parsha, Pinchas. So you tell the story of Pinchas, yeah? What happened? The Jews sinned, yes? Zimri sinned with Cosby. Pinchas kills Zimri and Cosby. And then we talk about the hero, Pinchas, being rewarded the priesthood. So why don't we do that? Why do we split it into 2? Why do we have the story of what happened in last week's Parsha? And then we have a break. And now we carry on. Oh, by the way, and it's only the beginning part of the Cedric. It's only in the first, how many we got from Yud? 8 verses. Right? 8 verses discussing about Pinchas directly. And then it goes on to other things. Interesting, isn't it? An interesting thing. So that's the question. What is the answer? I'm going to tell you after a bracha.
So this, you're saying this could have been added to the previous section.
No, the other way around.
Oh, right.
The end of the previous
could have been added
to here. Yeah. Especially since we're calling the Parsha Pinchas. Remember, we're calling the Parsha Pinchas. But most of the Parsha does not speak about Pinchas. Yes? It talks about all sorts of things. It talks about the land, division of the land. Yes? About the counting the families, division of the land, the sacrifices. Yes? So it doesn't directly talk about Pinchas, except only in the first verses. So you could have surely taken from the last Parsha, put a few more verses about Pinchas in Parshas Pinchas. Why did you split it into 2? You understand? That's the question. You understand?
Yeah, no, I was wondering if the tribe of Shimon had some kind of repercussions, in terms of.
They lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
They did.
No, but in terms of the land, where they were, and no, there wasn't any repercussions.
No, there were less people to inherit the land because a lot of people died out were executed. In that it was execution or plague as well. So there's a beautiful answer by a great rabbi called Rabbi Moshe of Kushi, Now, Couchy is a place in Provence, I think in southern France. And this chap, Rabbi Moshe Couchy, lived in the 13th century. So around about the time of the Rambam. He was a great, great rabbi, and he wrote a very important work called the Sefer Mitzvahs Godel, which is a book that enumerates all the mitzvahs in the Torah and speaks about all the mitzvahs, based a lot on the Rambam, because the Rambam, remember, also have a Sefer Mitzvahs. Yes, he has a Sefer Mitzvahs, the Rambam. And this, he expands and elaborates them. He was interesting because he was the first, you could almost say the first Lubavitcher in history. What do I mean, the first Lubavitcher in history? Because in the 13th century, this chap, Rav Moshe Couchy, he went around Provence, and he went Spain, and he went here and there, and he was putting on tefillin with people. he was really big into mitzvah tefillin. And he encouraged everybody to put on tefillin. That's what he was in about. But he also obviously wrote some greats for him. And he asked this question about why the book is split up. And the Tversky brings in his famous book, Living Each Week. Have you ever heard that book, Living Each Week? He's got Living Each Day, Living Each Week. Yeah. So they're very good. They're for some beautiful concepts there. And he says like this, he says, Pinchas is like the quintessence of what we call zealousness. Yeah. He was zealous for Hashem. It says, look what it says. Look at the verse 11. The verse 11. Pinchas ben Aaron HaKohen, he assuaged my anger. The Jewish people. Bekinoi es kinosi. He how does he translate it here? Because of my zealous anger, right? He was zealously avenging me. That's how he translates it. It's very hard to translate in English. Zealously avenging me. There you go. Because Hashem was rather zealous anger. It's interesting. Zealous anger. Why zealous? Specifically with this? Okay, that's another bit of a question. Why it says that? But it says that so he was the one. So the thing is like this: zealousness. What is zealousness? Is somebody sort of, you're like really passionate, aren't you? You're really passionate about what you believe, right? Some would call it fanatical. If you wanted to be cynical, yes, you'd call it fanatical. He's a fanatic, right? But really, zealousness means just, if you want to look at the thesaurus, you'd say something like ardent, yes, passionate, yes. There are words like this, okay? Ardently, right? So he was very ardent and very passionate. But the thing is, whenever feelings of zealousness arouse in a person, it's a bit hard to know if the zealousness is coming because you're a pure, mature mensch who is outraged by wrong, yes, that you see, or you're a kind of an immature, spontaneous person who just blows up, at the first thing. Well, how do you know? How do you know if the feelings that you have are feelings of pure, purity? They're based in spirituality, or they are just a result of an immature personality that you just, cool. You can't control yourself. You're too. What's the word? It's not more than spontaneous. What is it? When a person is, they're intemperate because they what's the word? They blow up like very easily. What's that expression? Yeah. Quick-tempered, yes, quick-tempered. Sorry, hot-headed, yeah.
Explosive.
Yeah. So how do you know? Well, you know what you do. You have to wait. You have to wait.
The motive, I think, is the difference.
Emotive is emotions. There's one other.
No. But the reason why the emotions is how to separate this is the motive. Why am I blowing up?
Oh, motive.
Yes.
Motive.
Sorry.
You're saying motive. Yeah, you have to, exactly.
Right.
You have to analyze the motive. Exactly, 100%. And for that, you need a little bit of time. You need a bit of time. You need to wait a little bit. You need to look at this person. Look at the person. See who they are, what they are. Just have a little bit of a cool analysis of the person. Are they a mature, calm person who was just outraged by what he saw? Or is the person a crazy kind of a spontaneous person who will just blow up at the slightest thing, right? So that you need time to sometimes examine. That's why there's a break. That's why there's a break in the Parsha.
Like if the person's like impulsive or not.
Impulsive.
Yeah.
That was the word I was looking for. Shkoya. Impulsive.
Yeah.
That was the word I was looking for.
Right.
Yeah. Where a person is impulsive, they just do stuff. They just have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you need that break to analyze the person, and a person even to self-analyze perhaps. So that's why the Parsha is split into two.
He passed it.
Do you understand? So he passed the test because Pinchas wasn't just doing because he was impulsive and fanatical.
Yeah.
Yes, he was doing it because he was really personally,
Passionate.
impassioned and outraged, okay, by a terrible wrong, right? I think you saw that. For those of you, did anybody see the address yesterday by Prime Minister Netanyahu to Congress? It was, you could see it live. It was very quite. So if you could see that he's passionately upset. The truth is, it could be anybody who's not passionately angry at what was done on October 7th. There's something wrong with them. You know what I'm saying? There's something wrong with them, right? So that people understand that we are passionately upset about and angry about, and making sure that never happens again. Never again. You know what I'm saying? It's not something you sort of discuss in a calm, relaxed way. Yeah? Because there's outrage here. So, but the reason why we need that break is to see, exactly what kind of person we are talking about.
Break.
Pardon?
It's the word break, which reminds me of that. I think it's here that the word shalom, the Vav is broken, because some in the Torah is broken.
Oh, yes, you're right, actually.
No, because
In verse 12.
Where they said the Torah was possible, and then when you got another
Oh,
Torah,
whoa, it's right here, Gerson.
Yes, I see it. I know. It is broken.
Tell them online.
no, but it isn't broken in the.
It is. It is on verse 14, 12.
It has two
If you
stars.
not only that, you can see the Vav is broken. If you look in verse 12 on page 1040 in the Hebrew,
Yeah.
you can see the word shalom. Is the Vav is broken. You can see a little.
No, it's so bad.
Well, we're gonna have to get you new glasses.
No, because men will say that it was somewhere.
No, it's here.
It's possible, and they put it away.
Yes, yes. And they've, that's the interesting thing, because in any other place, in any other place, this would be possible.
Yeah.
Right. Correct. It would be considered. What's the word? Possible. How do you translate possible? It would be disqualified. Yeah. So what were you going to say? What? And the meaning is.
And that's what my neighbor doesn't understand. That you don't say stop the war, because it's not. It's like here. You shouldn't kill him. Of course you have.
Yes,
to.
exactly. How did the war end? World War. How do wars end? Wars end when the bad guys get beaten.
That's
Okay,
what
that's what happened in World War II. That's what happened in World War I. Actually, it didn't happen in World War I. In fact, funnily enough, that's a bit. Some say that's exactly because World War I was basically a surrender. It was a ceasefire because the Germans were not beaten. The Germans were not beaten in war in World War I. They just figured that they're not going to win. They can't win. America joined the war in 1917, and they figured they could not win. So therefore they said, all right, let's call it quits, right? And what happened was they left with their whole army intact, basically. Okay. And some say that was really, they laid the seeds for World War II, right? Because they felt angry that many people felt angry, Hitler as well. A lot of them felt angry that they had surrendered when they didn't lose the war. They never lost the war. So therefore you got World War II. Then they lost. So I like that idea. Break peace to make peace. I like that. Exactly.
But you realise that's what's happening now. If we could stop now, we'd be back to square one.
Well, I say Mrs. Suffering for president, for Prime Minister. There you go.
Today.
There you go. Yes, let's nominate you for Prime Minister of Israel. And all right, we'll agree to meet. We'll make the meetings in the morning. We'll make your meetings in the morning. I'll be your I'll be your assistant.
Well, not if a woman says something, he's not going to be told what to do by a woman.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay. All right. Well, you tell me then, and I'll tell everybody else. Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah, the important decisions and the yes, the small decisions, right? You know that one. Yeah. All right. We okay. So that is yeah, that's slightly off the subject a little bit, but this is. I just did.
Okay, you talk about.
But can I
I
ask
just, I just did.
Nathaniel's speech, because I didn't hear it, but
Well, if
sorry.
with your permission, we're in the middle of a shiur, so we'll talk about it at the end of the shiur if you like. We can talk about it, but it's not fair. We don't want to talk about politics and stuff like that, even though it was a good speech. I don't want to talk about it now, okay? So we'll talk about it at the end of the class. Much as I enjoy talking about these things, discipline, shall we say? Yes. Now, okay. Now, let us just understand over here. Look at verse 12. So we've just said, I'm going to give him, Hashem said, I'm going to give him my bris of peace, because he did something that normally one would think is actually associated with warfare, because he killed somebody, right? And I'm actually saying, no, what he did was actually beyond. He made sure that there was peace, because, and that's maybe, as we just mentioned, the broken Vav there, as you can see, actually, even in the Gutnik, it was a broken Vav, is the idea that in order to, make the peace, you sometimes have to break it, and you sometimes do radical things. This says Hashem oz la'amo yiten, he gives strength to the Jewish people. Hashem mevorachas over shalom, then he will bless them in peace. And then it says, he will be forevermore, he will have the priesthood as part of his seeds, okay, his seed, because he was zealous for me and he atoned for the Jewish people. Okay, now let's just quite understand over here. Pinchas was a grandson of Aaron, right? His father was Elazar. Elazar was a son of Aaron. So why wasn't he already a Cohen? If he was a grandson of Aaron, he should have been a Cohen, because all the family of Aaron were priests, right?
Oh.
So the answer is that when Hashem first mentioned about the priesthood going to Aaron, he said like this, and the words were basically that the priesthood will go to Aaron, his children, and all the seed who come from then on. In other words, any children born after that time would be priests, right? And that's what we call the kahuna, the family of Aaron, they were priests. But you see, Pinchas had already been born. Pinchas was already alive when this happened. So he wasn't included in the priesthood as such. He was only Aaron, his sons, Elazar, Itamar, Nadav and Avihu, who actually died, of course, right, in Parsha Shmini, and any children that would be born from then on. Now you can ask why was Pinchas left out? Okay, we can't really answer. You can ask that question.
Because he was born.
Yeah, no, it's not the question. It's why.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, why didn't Hashem say his son, his Aaron, his children, and his grandchildren, and everybody else around? Whatever. That's Hashem's business. Why was he not included? But he wasn't. He wasn't. So he was not technically. And it seems, at least I'm thinking logically now, although you could see it both ways, that the children of Pinchas might not also have been considered priests if he had not, even his children. I could look at it both ways, but it would seem logical to assume that if he is not a priest, his children will not be priests as well, right? Because it's an inherited, yes, it's an inherited characteristic. So the future children coming from the children, Aaron, Elazar, Itamar, they would be priests. So Hashem rewarded priesthood to him after this event. I always like to think of it, I kind of, to me, you could imagine I can imagine that Pinchas himself, once he heard the news about the priesthood, that Aaron's going to be the priest, his children, and all the children born afterwards, but not him. If I would have been him, I would have been pretty sad that I've been left out.
Was he from a different, like, Yichus?
No, he was the son of Elazar.
No, I know. Okay.
He was the grandson of Aaron. No different yichus. That's the whole thing. Like, look, Hashem said, you know, but you can imagine, I mean, I would imagine if I would have been very upset. But we don't hear of him protesting. Yeah, because he complained. Correct. Yeah, but he didn't just complain. I mean, he led a rebellion. He led a rebellion. He wanted to be the high priest, and he wanted to, right? So he led a whole rebellion, right? So we don't read about Pinchas being upset or angry or anything. We don't read about it. We don't really, you know. We might have. I mean, I don't really know. I haven't checked out the midrashim there about what it says when. Could be he was sad. He was sad, but he certainly wasn't, you know, perhaps angry. But here we see. I don't know. We don't know of any.
Don't mention that to me.
We don't. I don't think so. I don't think so. At any rate, so this was how he was given this tremendous, fantastic reward. Now, here comes another interesting point. Why is it that Pinchas got this amazing reward of becoming a priest? I mean, surely a priest is a spiritual thing. It's an inheritance. How do you suddenly get this? You get this. I mean, you get this reward, and he atoned. We're taking. Wow, who's amazing? He atoned for the Jewish people, and he stopped the plague and this, that, and the other. And amazing, right? The question is, I mean, was Pinchas the only chap who saved the Jewish people, who atoned for the Jewish people? Who was the one who kept begging forgiveness for the Jewish people? Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu davened for the people, the sin of the golden calf, the Onanim, the ones complaining about the lack of meat. We read a couple of weeks ago about Halotzo. The Meraglim, the spies, the snakes. I mean, numerous times Moshe davened for and saved the Jewish people. So now, and he wanted the greatness to go to his kids. He didn't get that. He wanted the leadership to be transferred to his kids. He never got that. No, went to Joshua. Pinchas, okay, he did a wonderful thing. He did it once. And suddenly, whoa, you know what? You're going to Cohen, and all your children are going to be Cohen from now on. Why? Interesting question, isn't it? How he seems to have gotten more than Moshe did, even though Moshe is all the time pleading and saving and atoning for the Jewish people. So here we come to a very interesting analysis here. You see, there's a concept of there's a sort of a spiritual salvation and there's a physical salvation. There's a salvation that comes through. There's a salvation that comes through light. If it's dark, you turn the light on. Oh wow! Now I can see. Wonderful. But then there's a different kind of salvation where it's coming from below, and it's a physical thing. It's not a spiritual thing. When Moshe was davening for the Jewish people, he was basically, it was like he was calling down a greater form of life, and he was putting his spiritual self on the line. He said, if you don't forget the Jewish people, wipe me out of your book. I don't want to be associated, right? I do not want to be associated with the Torah. Well, that's a kind of a spiritual concern and a spiritual self-sacrifice. Of course, we get that. But Pinchas was something else. Pinchas wasn't just sacrificing himself spiritually. He was literally put himself in danger. Okay, because at any minute, okay, Zimri could have killed him. Okay, and if you would have killed him, then he wouldn't have been. If somebody's trying to kill you, you're allowed to kill them in self-defense. Mm-hmm. So he put his life in danger, literally his physical life in danger. Now that's a different. That's sort of a. That's what you call like an arousal from below. You're doing something that is changing the very fabric of the earth. You know, there's one thing when you
Went in and saved the hostage.
yeah,
That's so simple.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to negotiations from above. Yeah, absolutely. Very good point. Because you're literally doing it from below, right? And you're changing you're changing the whole equation here, right? So yes, Moshe davened from a spiritual point of view. That was great. That was amazing. But essentially, it was coming from above. Pinchas did it, so to speak, from below, with the self-sacrifice, which is a physical thing, because that's the difference between serving Hashem, so to speak, from above and serving from below. When you get the godly light from above, well, that's great, that's lovely. But what happens when that light goes away? That light goes away and it doesn't necessarily fit the dark anymore, right? What happened after Matan Torah? The Jews got the greatest godly revelation. They got the Chet Egel, the golden calf, 40 days later, right? Crazy. Was it 40 days later? 17th of Tammuz, whatever it was. Yeah, it was 40 days later after giving the Torah. He came down on the 40th day. But when you change things from below, then you really affect a real change. It's because it changes you yourself, and that's why Pinchas merited to have a whole transformation of himself physically, so that his children would be Kohanim as well. His children, because that is a continuation, you see, because when you change things physically, that's eternal. You know, it goes on forever. That's one of the reasons why Hashem forgave the Jewish people and said, okay, what are you going to do now? To atone properly for that, we're going to have to build the Mishkan. So the Mishkan will be a solid, continual place of revelation of God in the world. Because it's not just enough to have a great revelation at Mount Sinai for a few hours and it goes away. Well, then you're kind of lost again. You don't have that. That's the way the world works. You know, once the godly revelation goes away, darkness returns. Right? If you've got the Mishkan, the tabernacle there, there's a constant reminder of godliness that is there with you. And that is why Pinchas merited to have his children. And Moshe didn't, because it was the difference between spiritual salvation from above as opposed to a physical salvation from below. Okay, is that clear? Okay. Now I'd like to just go on to discuss something here. The last thing to speak about, where are we in the time situation?
22.
22, okay. So let us now discuss something that is mentioned a little bit towards the end of the Parsha. If you look, okay, page 1062, 1063. 1062, 1063. Okay. Now, I want to share with you a discussion from the Midrash. The Midrash discusses a fascinating discussion about which is the most important verse in the Torah. Yes. Now, basically, the Sifri, the Midrash, brings three opinions. There's the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. He holds that the idea of Yahavta l'recha kamocha, loving your fellow Jew, is the most. That's a zeh klal gadol b'Torah. Right? We say it's one of the psukim. This is a big and a great a principle in the Torah. Then we have another opinion, is Ben Azai. Ben Azai. Now, he says like this, that there's another pasuk, which is all the way back in Bereshis. Okay? In Bereshis, with Zeh Sefer Toldos Odom. This is the book of the generations of man. Okay. Let me just see if I can find it. Okay, it's exactly where it is. I can't exactly say, but that what he says that this is the state of the generations of man, in which man was created in the image of God, man and woman created in the image of God, and he holds this. This Ben Zoma holds this is actually even more important, okay, because that represents the creation of man being created in the image of God. So Rabbi Akiva is speaking more about the Jewish people, if you like, and Ben Zoma says about the right. Ben Azai says that. Okay, then now so that's two opinions. Then we have another statement that comes from a famous book called Ein Yaakov. Anybody ever heard of Ein Yaakov? Every Monday night? What you used to have your Mocha used to get Monday night at your place? Oh, but so Mendel continues that year, and he puts it online. Very nice. So Ein Yaakov was written by a chap called Ibn Habib. It was before the time of the Maharal, actually, just before the Maharal, and he wrote what he did. A very clever thing. The Talmud, you know the Talmud. You all know. Everybody knows what the Talmud is. Discusses all the laws of the Torah. But there's two real parts to it. One is the legalistic part, where there's an argy-bargy, backwards and forwards, questions, answers on Jewish law, right? And then, there's a decision or there isn't a decision. It's a long and involved legalistic discussion. But throughout the Talmud, there are many parts of the Talmud that are just like stories, parables, metaphors, droshes, like little mini sermons, yes, that have nothing really to do with Jewish law, but they're fascinating, interesting stuff. All kinds of incredible stories and knowledge and folklore. It's not folklore. Folklore implies that it's Bobomyces, doesn't it? Folklore is not really, in English, it's not really true, is it? Folklore is almost like imagination made up, isn't it? But here it's lore, I would say, not folklore. Lore, L-O-R-E, as opposed to L-A-W. Understand? Anyway, so this chap, Rabbi Ibn Habib, he went through the entire Talmud and he just collected all that stuff, all the stories, the parables, the sermons, that are in the Talmud, and he left all the legalistic discussion out, right? So, and it's an incredibly inspiring. So people who study this, it's called Ein Yaakov. Ein Yaakov. So in this Ein Yaakov, there's a very similar discussion. Which is the most important verse in the Torah? And there we've got three opinions over there. We've got a chap called Ben Nanas. This Ben Nanas, he holds like Rabbi Akiva. You have to learn Kamoicha, their cloud God Torah, the big principle, right? Then we've got another chap called Ben Zoma, as opposed to the previous chap was called Ben Azai. Now he holds the most important verse in the Torah. I'll let you have a guess. What do you think? You think it's the most important verse in the Torah? Have a guess. No, not the same as. Not the same as. Have a guess. If somebody would say to you, tell me quickly, spontaneously, what's the most important verse in the whole Torah? What's the verse? Come on. Don't think. Don't just think. No, what would you think is the most important verse in the Torah? Come on. It's not a trick question. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Shema Yisrael.
I have no other.
Okay, and that's a good one. I'm the land who brought you. I'm the God who brought you out of. Yeah, but that actually, funnily enough, that's not one of the. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. He holds that's the most important verse in our Ben Zoma. Okay, and then so that's the second opinion. The third opinion, we've got a chap called Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi. Paz means gold. Shimon ben Pazi, and he is like this. He has the verse in our Parsha. Look at this. Verse 4 on page 1062. And you shall bring one sheep in the morning in the temple, in the tabernacle, and 1 sheep in the afternoon, you shall bring the sacrifice. That is what Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi says. You look like you'd like to say something.
I was thinking, because when I was told the minimum you were allowed to say, everyone was supposed to say this over in the morning. So he's,
Yeah, some people say every day, yeah.
so he's brought one possible.
Yeah. No. Well, no, there's a whole lot of verses you say. The sacrifices. Correct. But okay. But I mean, the thing is, when you think about it, it's a bit hard to understand. Because really, when you think about the other verses, right? Okay, that is kind of, you see, that's a big deal. Yes, that's an amazing thing. The idea of unity of all the Jewish people, it's a very special thing. Yeah, you can't get that. You understand the idea of this is the creation of man in God's image. Wow, that is amazing. That is an incredible expression of who we are. Our souls are an expression of God's image. That's also amazing, right? You get that. Shema Yisrael, the unity, the oneness of Hashem. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Monotheism, the very basis of morality in the world. But you come here and you get this verse, bring a sheep in the morning and bring a sheep in the afternoon as a sacrifice. Especially since we don't do it now. But even if you did do it, I mean, it doesn't seem particularly an inspirational verse. And it seems to be, but the funny thing is, you'll never guess that they got up, a certain rabbi got up, in the and it's mentioned in Yaakov, which means it's in the Talmud somewhere, that a certain chap got up there and said, you know, halacha is like the one who we decide is true, is guess who? Is this guy, you know, Shimon ben Pazi, that this verse is it. This is the most important verse in the Torah. It's the most general principle. Like it's a klal God, it's the most overarching principle of Torah and Judaism. Fascinating.
Checking animals.
Sorry?
No, God's and man twice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's try and understand what this is all about. And actually, I think this is basically the idea. This is brought by the Maharal as well. Okay, because the Maharal discusses this. You see, we do kind of understand. But by the way, just as a sort of a PS to this, the reason he says this rabbi who gets up and says the halacha is Shimon ben Pazi, he brings another verse as a proof. He says because the verse says you could do everything to make the Mishkan, the tabernacle that I've shown you in the mountain, on the mountain, and so should you do. So should you do. Okay, that's what he said.
I don't get it. So should you do what?
That's what you should do.
Oh.
Yeah. So you'll see in a minute that those two words are crucial. You see, in Judaism, we are full of great inspirational ideas. We are. Shema Yisrael, I just spoke about it. Shema Yisrael, and come on. That is like the idea of God is one, the unity of God in creation. He's one. I mean, that is the basis, we just said before, this is the basis of all, in a sense, civilization, monotheism.
Action step.
So, and then we also have the idea of you have to love your fellow by a Jew.
Oh, that can be done.
Yes, but although the word "v'ahavta" obviously is an emotional, it's an emotional thing to love somebody. Okay, it's a question: how can you command an emotion?
No,
Love.
But
No.
you're doing it giving tzedakah or
Yeah, true. But on the verse itself. But now you're okay. But you're now talking about an explanation of the verse. Yeah, you're right. That's but the verse itself. Just look at the verse itself. So, and then of course you look at the other verse. The other verse speaks about the greatness of man created in the image of God, how great we can aspire to, how high we can go. You know, these are all amazing things. Right? So the Maharal says, yes, this is all very good and fine and wonderful, and necessary. Right? But you know what? Do you know really what counts more than anything else? Is a sakeres echad taseh b'bekir, sakeres hashni taseh b'bayim. When you make a sacrifice, for Hashem. It's not just about a physical sacrifice that was in the temple. The physical sacrifice in the temple in the morning and the evening represents a sacrifice. Exactly. It represents, you see, this sacrifice had to be offered every single day. Rain or shine, 365 days a year. There was no 365 days a year. Shalom Aleichem. And there was no break in that. This is the continuity and the consistency that is, in a sense, the greatest thing of all. Because what does God want from us, really? It's every day we are alive. We wake up in the morning. We need to make a sacrifice. We have to sacrifice. We have to remember we are sacrificing. This is part of our existence, to make sacrifices. And there's a sacrifice in the morning. There's a sacrifice in the evening. There's a sacrifice when the things are going good. And Hakidori, that's the morning. That's the daytime. That's the light. And there's a sacrifice when things maybe are not going so great. And things are a little bit tough. And things are dark towards the evening.
Is that why, like, we're told that it's better, other than giving a big lump sum of tzedakah, that we're continuously giving like a little bit, like every single day?
There is an Indian, there is a concept of giving every day a little bit, better more. The more you do, correct.
It's
Correct. It's a very similar idea. Getting used to do something physically, an action. Okay. And it's so interesting that it says over here that this idea, this in a sense is the most crucial part of Judaism, the continuity, the consistency of sacrifice that is, we Jews are called upon every single day. That's really the most important part of what Judaism is about. Not about, all these other great ideas. The ideas are great. The inspiration is wonderful. And it's necessary. You need the inspiration, otherwise, But it's got to be also about, it's got to be about action and a sacrifice.
Yeah. It's really amazing.
It's
The analogy for us, though, of a sacrifice.
Because-
Is that being doing something over and above
No,
ourselves?
we have to stop every single day and go do
An action.
An action,
Help.
Or whatever that sacrifice is. Sometimes people have no problems. They just jump out of bed and everything's hunky-dory, and they're serving Hashem just like that, But sometimes it's harder. Whatever it is, sometimes you're having to sacrifice something, right? Whatever it is, while you're serving Hashem. It can also, by the way, and I just heard this, also an interesting, fascinating thing. The word get, get?
Get out of bed.
No.
No.
In Hebrew, get is a divorce document.
Yeah.
Yes? So they ask, where does the word get come from? Where did it come from? So there's various ideas where this word comes from and why you have the word get, because the word is not a biblical word, right? But the interesting thing is that one of the explanations is that if in this Parsha that we are looking at, right? This Parsha, right? That we're talking about from verse 1, chapter 28, verse 1 until verse 8, okay? The same chapter. If you look at those, every single letter in the Hebrew alphabet is in there, except two letters. Two letters.
Oh.
Get. Gimel and Tes.
Oh.
Okay? And that is a fascinating thing because in a sense that symbolizes that what marriage is about as well. What is marriage about? Okay.
Sacrifice.
What is about a sacrifice? It's about a constant sense of sacrifice. Morning, evening, today, tomorrow, the day after, right? What are you saying? Fake it till you make it? Is that what you're saying? You don't, if you act out, when you act something out,
It becomes part of you.
exactly, fake it till you make it, as you say, right? It's when you don't act out, right? It's when you don't act it. It's when people who, You see, talk about love. Somebody was saying, some certain rabbi somewhere, he saw some eating chicken somewhere, and he was eating chicken with a little bit too much gusto, shall we say? Yes. So he came up to me and he said, "My dear friend, why are you exactly so enthusiastic about eating this chicken here? I can see a little bit OTT." He says, "Oh, I see, Rabbi." He says, "I love chicken. I love chicken." So I said, "Oh, really? You love chicken, do you? So you love chicken. So is that what you? So when you love, so you love the chicken. So that's why you slit the throat of the chicken, right? You pluck all its things out. You pluck all its feathers out. You cut them into pieces, right? Then you burn him. You cook him on the fire, right? And then you eat him, right? Is that what you do to all the things that you love? Is that what you do to all the things that you love? You don't love chicken. You love yourself. You love your taste buds. You like your belly. You like your belly has it, right? What do you mean you love chicken, right? It's all about loving yourself, right?
You love the taste of chicken.
So really, so what we so it's a very important lesson here. People have to understand when it comes to love. Remember, you want to do something for somebody else. You're making a sacrifice, because you're sacrificing yourself. You're giving up yourself. Not just person stuffs. You do stuff for yourself. I love the chicken. Well, you love your spouse. You love you love. Okay, how you going you love them, or you love yourself? You love yourself because you love what they're going to do for you, right? Or do you love the fact that you have the opportunity to do something for them? That is what love is really about. And that's why these two letters are not mentioned. That's why the Talmud says that if God forbid there is a get, even though sometimes it is necessary, yes, sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it saves lives. Yeah, it can happen, right? But it says that even if there is a get, it says even the Mizbeach, the altar, sheds tears. They tell a story apparently about some woman. She comes to Rabbi and she says, "Rabbi," she says, "I need a divorce. I need a divorce. I need a divorce from my hubby," she says. He says, "Well, how long have you been married?" She said, 45 years. I said, 45 years? He said, yeah. He says, "Do you want a divorce? What do you do?" "Do you know," he says, "Rabbi, that divorce causes the altar to cry, to shed tears." So he said, "Rabbi, look, I've been crying for 45 years. He says, "Let the altar cry a little bit, She said, but that's why, so that's the idea of a get, okay, is not mentioned in the thing. But the idea of this sacrifice, so there's a sacrifice, of course, our marriage, we are a marriage between Hashem and us. So this is the key, and this week's Parsha is the key to really what Judaism is all about, the great sacrifice that we are called upon to make, a sacrifice in the morning, a sacrifice in the evening. And that is really the true continuity and the true of what Judaism is about, what marriage is about, what relationship is about, making that sacrifice. I thank you for sacrificing your time and coming to listen. And in Mitzvah Hashem, we will meet again next year.
Thank you so much.
My neighbour keeps her waiting.
Thank you.
She sacrifices at the beginning of the Shiur while she waits for her neighbour. That's called sacrifice in the morning.
No. It's quite entertaining.
You're benefiting.
You could have seen this morning.
Someone. We're talking about the someone. All right. Thank you, ladies. Thank you very much.
Hello, Denise.
Hi.
They might have hung up already.
I want to tell you something.
Okay.
My grandchildren all know